Please rise. And thank you, Mary and Charmin. Did anybody figure that there was going to be a little bit of music today? Just a little. A little backstory behind that piece, and I hope I get the story correct, so those of you who know it better than me, please correct me. Mary played that piece for Mary Moore on her 95th birthday. Was that right? I don't know. We have a video of this Mary playing it for that Mary. And was that on Mary's mother's violin? Oh, yes. So, okay. We're shaking up some memories. So most of the pieces of music that you will hear today have some story and connection to Mary, and some of those are included in the bulletin, and we'll fill those in as we go along if we need to. A few announcements. If you're not familiar with our building, restrooms are down this hall, about halfway down the hall on your left. If for any reason we do need to leave this room, all of a sudden in a hurry, there's an exit door here and there's an exit door out there, and there's also an exterior door that goes out of the building down that hall as well. You are all invited to gather after the service up in Fellowship Hall for a reception. It'll be an hors d'oeuvre reception. There's lots of good food. You know, it's a church, so there's lots of good food up there. There's also, along the side of the room, is a whole bunch of Mary memorabilia that needs a home. So it's all of that stuff is yours for the taking. You may recognize a coffee mug that maybe you gave to Mary as a Christmas gift, or a newspaper article that involves something that you were involved in with Mary. Look through those things. Look through the photo albums. If there's a particular photo out of the album that you want, take the whole album. Or just take a picture, just whatever. But know that those things are there for you to take and cherish as a way to remember Mary. And I think that is all of the announcements that I have. We're grateful for everybody who is singing in the choir today. It's wonderful, and I recognize that this is a collection of singers from all walks of Mary's life, so that's going to be wonderful. So on behalf of Mary's family and friends, and in the name of the risen Christ, I greet you and welcome you to this sacred time of remembrance and celebration. Mary Evelyn Moore began her journey of life over 96 years ago. Today is about remembering and celebrating those years and the multitude of ways her life has been important in ours and has perhaps changed the world. Think about that, because she has had an impact on all of your lives, and you have an impact on the world. Mary has changed the world. Who could spend time with Mary and not come away with a sense of grace, the impact of the smile that spread all the way to her eyes, and her hearty laugh? We come to support one another in our sorrow, and we come to commend this beautiful life to the God who loved Mary enough to create her. We gather here in the protective shelter of God's healing love. We gather here as God's people, conscious of others who have died and the frailty of our own existence on earth. We gather to hear God's word of hope that can hold our sorrow and move us to offer God our praise. We commend to God with thanksgiving the life of Mary Evelyn Moore, as we celebrate the good news of Christ's resurrection. For whether we live or whether we die, we belong to Christ, who is Lord both of the dead and the living. I invite you to be with me in the spirit of prayer. Loving God, so gentle in your power and so strong in your tenderness, we rejoice this day that you give us life, abundant and eternal. Such is your love for us. In your boundless mercy, grant that your Holy Spirit may intercede for us with sighs too deep for human words. Heal our wounded hearts made heavy by sorrow. Fill the space that has been left by the separation from our sister Mary. That we have shared life with her is such a gift, and so we now, ever so reluctantly, return her back to your care. Bless all who are gathered here this day by giving us your peace and comfort which knows no end. Give your care to all creation through Jesus Christ our Lord, in whose name we pray. Amen. Our opening hymn is Amazing Grace. It is found inside your bulletin, so you can turn to that. We're going to be singing verses 1, 4, and 5, and I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing together. Please be seated. And Michael, why don't you go ahead and come on forward?
Hello, I'm Mike. Is this on? Can you hear me? I'm one of Mary's nephews. We are all here today because our dear departed Mary greatly touched our lives in some way. Most of you came to know Mary through her love for music and the many wonderful contributions that she made to the Montana music community and points beyond. Some also came to know her through her beloved Cocker Spaniel companions that brought her so much joy, and any of those who met them. Mary was involved with so many of these activities that you might think she didn't have much time for anything else. But that's not the case, as I, my brothers, Jack, Bob, and Ron, and my sister Patty can attest. On June 24th, 1961, her brother Alan married our mother, Marguerite, and we instantly benefited from gaining Mary as a committed and very loving aunt of 5 rather rambunctious kids that she'd never met before. Her unconditioned and loving acceptance of us all was immediate and long-lasting, almost 63 years to be exact. As children, most of our time spent with Mary was during our annual summer vacations in Montana and in Wyoming. Mary did much of the planning and the preparation for numerous enjoyable cabin vacations in the great outdoors, including visits to Lake Lindbergh, Lake Seeley and Lake McDonald in Montana, and Alcova Lake in Wyoming. Her vacation preparations included making bounteous arrays of delicious cookies and treats that fueled and delighted us throughout the many activities she'd set up for us. These activities included hiking, rowboating, swimming, fishing, sightseeing, and last but not least was the nightly game of Michigan Rummy around the cabin table. She introduced us to the joys of being outdoors in the wilds and hunting huckleberries. Then she delighted us with helping transform them into delicious muffins and pancakes the next morning. Each year, Mary selflessly took much time out of her very busy schedule to make sure these annual outings with this new part of her family were enjoyable for all. These vacations created wonderful memories that remain strong and are still with us today. Mary had a significant individual impact on each and every one of us. She took the time to get to know us, what our interests were, and what activities we were involved. She was a very easy person to talk with, and she would share her interests with us. She was always there to encourage us in person, in phone calls, and handwritten notes. Mary never forgot our birthdays and continued through all the years to send us cards or give us a call with words of encouragement on our special days. As we grew older, got married, and had children, Mary welcomed these new additions to the family with the same love and attention that she gave to us. Mary would take time out of her busy schedule to attend and celebrate special occasions of all her nieces and nephews and grandnieces and nephews, including high school graduations, college graduations, and special ceremonies. You all recall this. Mary spoke with a grand and melodic voice, which captured your attention but also soothed you. Her love for music was infectious. So our brother Jack, the oldest, he came to know the joys of opera through Mary. And in the late 60s, particularly the late 60s, the hard rock era, Jack took to opera and he would blast the opera classics at his job at the University of Wyoming commissary or whatever like that, much to the consternation and befuddlement of his hip coworkers. Now, one summer we were visiting, and Mary noticed that I enjoyed the music that they used for the NBC News. Huntley Brinkley, maybe some of you will remember. She advised me that it was excerpts from Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. And then she introduced me to several Bach and Beethoven compositions. Basically, those became my favorite songs in high school, and they were my go-to relaxation music. I still play them often. I fondly remember Mary every time. Ron, the second oldest, recalls being enraptured by Mary practicing her singing up on the summer vacations in the woods and powerfully gliding through the melodic trills of a mezzo-soprano. Ron, not having much musical prowess himself, still knew he was hearing something special, and he was amazed at how modestly unassuming his aunt was about this great talent. Ron also recalls how Mary was able to find time each year to hand knit wonderful scarves, caps, and sweaters as special presents for each member of the family. In the 70s, our sister Patty wanted to be challenged and to make a meaningful contribution to other people less fortunate than her. She quit her very safe job as a librarian, joined the Peace Corps, and accepted an assignment in a remote province of the Philippines. Our parents were somewhat protective of Patty and were not entirely supportive of her decision. But Mary was there. Mary was very supportive. She shared her own international travel experiences with Patty and encouraged her desire to be challenged and experience new things. Mary's continued support for Patty during this assignment helped provide Patty with the confidence and commitment to complete a difficult but very meaningful portion of her life. Bob recalls very fondly how Mary traveled many times to be part of special family occasions and contribute to the enjoyment and celebration. On one such occasion, Mary happily joined them on a side trip to a nearby Indian casino. Now, Mary was very content just to sit and watch people play and do their things like that. And I think it was Bob's wife, Jan, actually convinced her at the end to show her how to use a slot machine. So Mary plucked a few coins in and won a really nice jackpot. Now, it was noted in Mary's obituary how she was singing her father's Rotary Club meetings on occasion. A few years ago, Bob and his wife were visiting Mary up here, and he shared that he was also a member of the Rotary Club. Mary went to the trouble to look through her memorability and find her father's Rotary Club pin. She gave it to Bob as a remembrance. He wears it to this day to his Rotary Club meetings very proudly. So Mary, she was a wonderful person and a great aunt. But I'd like to point out to you that we're not here today because Mary's life has ended. It's because it was so beautifully lived. Let's celebrate that. Now, to close, sorry, my emotions. Our brother Jack shared with us a poem he'd come across a few years ago that really helped comfort us. So I'd like to share it with you. We don't know much about it. We do know who the author is, but it's entitled, "Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep." The author was a lady, Claire Harner. So let me see if I can get through this. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift, uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike. Gordon? There you are.
Lovely, Michael. Thank you so much. So great to see all these faces that have meant so much to each and every one of us collectively over so many years. If Mary were here, she would say, "This is so lovely. Who's this for?" And that's because Mary was always giving. She was completely of service to others and seldom thought of herself, which is rare for an artist, which Mary was. She was a visionary. Came back from a really nice career in Evanston as a young woman, moved back home to Great Falls, and with the purpose of starting a symphonic choir with to accompany a newly founded symphony orchestra in this city. She was a visionary. We at the Great Falls Symphony owe her a debt that's higher than the highest mountain in Montana. She was that person. She loved this community. She loved the people in this community. She loved each and every one of you, each and every one of us. And we treasure that. We've treasured that always. We treasure that today. She was an exemplary musician. I had the great privilege of, when I moved here, she was still singing, and she had this resplendent, resonant mezzo-soprano voice that was it just enveloped one's emotions when you heard it. And she sang frequently in performance with the symphony, and a few times under my direction, memories I'll always treasure. Charismatic leader. Raise your hand if you took voice lessons from Mary at some point in time. Keep your hands raised. Raise your hand if you sang in the church choir. that she was directing it. Keep your hands raised. Raise your hand if you sang in the symphonic choir. When she, yes, yes. And we each benefited from her charisma in making the music personal and come alive. I first met Mary at the University of Oregon. I was finishing a degree. And there in the summer for the Oregon Bach Festival, a wonderful musical event. And I was with a friend who was teaching at University of Montana, who was joining us at the Bach Festival, and said that I really should meet this friend of hers who is from Great Falls, Montana, a wonderful choral director and singer. Her name is Mary Moore. And so her name is Connie Speak, and she introduced Mary to me, and Mary and I just, I don't know, hit it off right away. Mary asked me what I was up to, and I said, well, I'm just finishing this program, and I'm looking for work. Aspiring young orchestral conductor. And she said, well, how ironic. The position in Great Falls, Montana has come open, and we're looking for a music director. And she said, let's go have lunch, and I'll tell you about the program and the community. And we did, and we just really enjoyed each other's company. And she encouraged me to apply, which I did. And that's a long story for another time. But I did end up here in Great Falls, moved here, and flew into town my first day on the job. And who was there to meet me at the airport but Mary Moore? Mary Moore herself was there to meet me, make me feel welcome, and introduce me to this community. One of the great privileges I had was to be with her on musical endeavors, whether it was Messiah, Elijah, Brahms' piece, and to sit with her and get into detail about the music. This is something she really enjoyed, is getting into the detail. What did the composer mean by this particular modulation? What did the composer mean by the sequence of sections in this particular cantata or oratorio? The nitty-gritty details of the music we wanted to talk about. What was happening in the composer's life? Very meaningful conversations for each of us. And she was so erudite. She knew her music thoroughly. And those people in the room who took lessons from her probably know that better than anyone. It's entirely fitting that in the service today, they were singing a section from Brahms' Requiem. It was the last piece that Mary conducted as choir director for the Great Falls Symphony Association. It's a piece that lived within her and resonated deeply. And so I want you to remember that when we sing that in a few moments. Knowing Mary, being with Mary, even here today, it's a love fest. She loved us, we loved her, and she will live on in our memories as we continue to treasure that love.
So nice to see so many of Mary's friends here and her family, too. My name is Carol Bradley, and I got to know Mary 19 years ago. I really wanted to get to know her. I belonged to this church at the time, and Mary was the choir director, and everybody just loved her. They revered her. I wanted the chance to get to know her, too. The church had a silent auction, and Mary had donated 4 voice lessons. I snapped them up. I went to her house for 4 straight weeks in a row. I stood in the curve of her 7-foot-long Steinway piano as she put me through a bewildering array of breathing exercises. I have to admit, that's not what I expected. And it became pretty clear pretty quickly that I was never going to be solo material. Not intentional solos, anyway. At the end of the 4 lessons, we called it good, and Mary said to me, "Good enough." But she did encourage me to join the church choir. And a year later, she suggested I join symphonic choir too. And she gave me a little hint. Kathy McIntosh, the choir director, would have me audition by singing Happy Birthday a cappella. You have to jump an octave singing Happy Birthday. And so I really practiced that song for several weeks, and I made it into choir. We only lived 12 blocks away, so it made sense to drive together to choir practice. And so for the first year, Mary and I would take turns driving. The problem was that when Mary drove, she would stick her arms all the way through the steering wheel and steer with her elbows. In an act of self-preservation, I convinced her to let me drive after that. We rode together for the next 14 years. Driving Miss Mary meant swinging by and picking up her very good friend, John Marinaccio. Once John was in the car, discussion would turn to the weather or politics. Thank goodness we were all on the same page where that came. After dropping John off after choir, Mary and I would often sit in her driveway chatting. And before I knew it, we had become fast friends. Mary was great company. She was a patient listener, and she's so gracious, maybe the most gracious person I've ever known. Did I mention her infectious laugh? She was a very modest person. In all the years I knew her, she never talked about that early glamorous career of hers until I finally asked. And she was very frugal. Her one splurge was hiring a lawn service, and as a result, she had the luscious grass in town. I'm glad to hear that she baked for her nephews, because I don't remember Mary being much of a cook. For her first 17 years back at home, she lived with her mother, and Nydia did the cooking. Mary loved eating at Family Affair. She liked the shrimp with lobster sauce at Maple Garden. She had a weakness for chocolate, especially the chocolate chip cookies from Vans IGA. She was partial to the peanut butter parfait at Dairy Queen. She delighted in animals. After her last Cocker Spaniel died, she welcomed Peggy Rosberg's Yorkies, Carrie Cann's Corgis, Michelle Thurman's Border Collie, and our own 2 dogs. Mary never would have said this, but she subscribed to her late friend Georgia Steer's belief that if you don't like dogs, there's something wrong with you. She read spy novels passed along to her from the late Cindy Addison. She said she enjoyed reading about lives so different from her own. Cindy, as many of you know, was the pianist for the church and symphonic choir, and she was Mary's closest friend. Every Thursday morning, Mary and Cindy would meet for breakfast at Wheat, Montana, to hash over the report. Those Thursday get-togethers were sacred time just for Mary and Cindy. Mary could be opinionated, and she was strong-willed. She once told me, "People don't think I have a temper, but I do." As an example, she described coming home from church practice one night, She had left a piano tuner to tune her piano. 3 hours later, the piano was lying in pieces on the floor. Boy, was she mad. She was frustrated when her students had to cancel classes because of drama or, worse, sports. And the only time I saw her flustered with me was the first year of the COVID pandemic. For her birthday, I brought what I thought was the most valuable thing you could have, 48 rolls of quilted northern toilet paper from Sam's Club. Mary stood on the porch of her house with a look of dismay. She said, "Where am I going to put that?" But she finally found some humor in it and let out her big laugh. For most of my time in choir, I was seated next to Mary at our practices. Maybe that was by design, so she can keep an ear on my singing. In later years, when she was in her late 80s and early 90s, I was able to lean over and point out where we were if she lost her place. Mary had to move to Grandview a couple of years ago when it became too hard for her to get around. Selling her house was agonizing for her. She'd lived there 63 years. But moving to Grandview, she said, gave her time to look back on her life and all the friends she had made. She was grateful to Carrie Can for doing her books for several years, for Michelle Thurman and Bob for cleaning her house and driving her to appointments, to her neighbor Lynn Facinda for doing Mary's grocery shopping and for watching each night to make sure Mary turned out her lights, to John Marinaccio for having her over for holidays and being such a steadfast friend. Dr. Bryce Addison, Mary adored. She'd known him ever since he took voice lessons from her in high school, and she trusted him implicitly. When he told her it was time to leave her house, she believed him. Most of all, Mary appreciated her longtime friend, Peggy Rosberg, who came every morning for the last few years to make Mary's breakfast and help her get a start to the day. The ring on my keychain says, "Do what you love and love what you do." Mary did that. She lived her life deeply. She cared about every student she had. She genuinely wanted the best for everyone. Weren't we lucky to know her? Thank you.
And after following Carol, I don't think I'm going to make you laugh as well as she did, but such is life. So I appreciate all the acknowledgments that she made, and I would like to thank all of you for being here and for being part of Mary's life. Wow, what a full life she had. She had more relationships with more people than I think any of us could ever hope to be. And what a kind, loving soul. And Carol may have thought she got mad every now and then, but boy, she didn't express it outwardly, and she'd find a way to turn it into something positive. I first met Mary when I was actually 13, and my mother said, "You're going to go take voice lessons," and so that's what I did. And I wasn't much interested in voice lessons and classical music and this and that. And my recollections from those days, even before high school, was that we didn't do much singing. I would go through the vocal things, and then she'd say, "How's your day? And how's your life? And what are you doing?" And suddenly, she was like my mother, but I could talk to her. and I could feel safe, and she wouldn't yell at me. And I would go out of there thinking we didn't sing any of those songs, but somehow that experience would make me go home and want to prepare to do a good job for the next lesson. That's just how Mary was. And through all those years of junior high and high school, she was such a wonderful mother figure for me. And little did I know that in the course of those years, she prepared me for college of, going to Concordia where I wanted to sing. And all of a sudden I realized I'd been singing Messiah, and I'd been singing opera, and I'd been singing in foreign languages, and I'd been singing lieder, and I'd been singing oratorios. And I got there and I thought, wow, I feel like I've already had my college education. And she would make time when I was in college or in high school. I was one of those sports or theater guys that was always missing their lesson, but she would make time at 9 o'clock so I could come over after sports and after debate or whatever it was to give me a lesson. And when I came home from college, she would somehow fit me in. And when she had 30, 40, 50 students, plus 2 choirs, plus symphonic choir, how did she have time to make you feel that you were just so important in her life? And I'm sure that most everyone out here feels the same way. You just connected with her in such a way that you just thought, wow, it's so nice to be with Mary. So, it's with fond recollection that I, bid farewell to our dear friend, but I think all of us will carry something special. As Carol mentioned, I got to see a little bit of a different side of Mary, and that she and my wife, Cindy, were best of friends, and to listen to them giggle and talk and share. I remember we were up at Flathead Lake, and we were sitting on the porch, and all of a sudden, the entire day had gone by, but it was just with this little repartee back and forth, talk about this, talk about that, and how she could have kept up with all world events, kept up with so many people's lives, I don't know. But she was a gem, and let's keep her in our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing those. There's also a video that has been put together, and it's the bulletin identifies the music. So you can imagine that as a video was being put together to try to figure out, well, what music should go behind that video that would be appropriate for Mary. And then I don't remember if it was Carol or Peggy pointed out that this recording of Mary had been discovered amongst her belongings, and Logan was able to take that and digitize it. And so that is the recording of, so we're going to hear Mary. Mary is going to be singing underneath the photos of her life. So we get the opportunity not only to see, but to hear Mary in just a beautiful, beautiful piece. This is a recording from 1955, and accompanying her on the organ is her very good friend Austin Lovelace. I don't know who the 2 women are that were playing violin, and I had to chuckle a little bit because we took the text off of the label of the record that says Erlene Burgett and Mrs. Ray Watterson violin. I'm pretty sure that Mrs. Ray Watterson had a different first name, but unfortunately, that's probably been lost to history as far as we are concerned, but we're grateful for their contributions as well. So let us enjoy not just the video, but the music that we're going to hear as well. Let us hear these words of Scripture, and may they bring us comfort and hope. First, from the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Second reading comes from the book of Ruth. Now, the story of Ruth is a great story of compassion, commitment, and devotion. What a better story to turn to for such an occasion today. The way the story goes, Ruth was a Moabite, or a foreign wife of one of the sons of Naomi. Naomi's husband had died, and then her 2 sons also perished. Left alone with only her 2 foreign daughters-in-law, Naomi started to return back to Bethlehem, to her home country. Realizing that she would have no means to care for her daughters-in-law, she told them to return to the homes of their birth. One of them did, and as Naomi asked. But Ruth clung to her with these words that have been kept for us in the book of Ruth. Do not press me to leave you, to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord do thus to me, and more as well, if even death parts me from you. It is unusual these days for a person to live most of their lives in one home. We are a society on the move. So what a treat to have known someone who lived the majority of her life in the home of her birth or her childhood. And Mary loved her home. She loved the yard, the arches, the neighbors. She loved that it was her home. But I think what she loved most was how her life, and therefore her friendships, were what made home a splendid place for her. That little white house at the corner of 30th Street and 4th Avenue North was filled literally and figuratively with remembrances of the beauty of her life. We all know that a big part of the beauty of Mary's life was her music. And it was beautiful, there is no doubt. And that beauty enriched all of our lives and this community. But the real beauty of her life is all of you. That has always been evident, especially over the last years of her life. Your beautiful friendship has been conspicuous over the last month or so since her passing. This coming together of community in love and care for her is inspiring. Thank you for everything and anything you have done to add to the beauty of Mary's life through your friendship with her. At the close of her 96 years of life, it was friendship that brought a smile to her face and the sparkle to her eyes. So today it makes sense to turn to one of the most moving stories of friendship in the Bible. The story of Ruth and her devotion to her mother-in-law, Naomi. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. In a world that can be harsh, this kind of devotion and commitment is life-giving, life-sustaining, even holy. For in this devotion is a spectacular image of God. Ruth's declaration of commitment to Naomi, often used in wedding ceremonies, reflects a level of commitment that is rare in this world. It's a commitment to relationship regardless of circumstances. It's a commitment to companionship regardless of disagreements. It's a commitment to care regardless of the depth of need. It's nothing short of a reflection of God's commitment to creation, to us, to Mary. You all may not have spoken of God in your relationship with Mary, but your actions, your devotion, your commitment to her spoke volumes of the very nature of God, a nature of love, commitment, and devotion. Our tangible friendship with Mary has come to its natural conclusion. May those memories be blessed, and may you take them deeply into your lives. And this is where we turn to God and God's most basic nature, love. A love that exhibits endless commitment to relationship with all of creation. A love that sustains and comforts. A love that is so devoted to relationship that not even death can get in its way. Your love and devotion to Mary has been spectacular. And that's just a hint of what God's love for Mary continues to be. It is time, my friends, to turn Mary over to God and know in all certainty that she is indeed being well tended to, although we're pretty sure that she's had a good month to get some of those heavenly choirs warmed up and ready to sing, literally, to high heaven. God's got her, and she is home. Thanks be to God. As we move into a time of prayer, you'll notice at the conclusion of the spoken prayer that I'm going to be offer, you'll be invited to join in the Lord's Prayer. And I realize that we come from a variety of traditions, and we may come with a variety of different ways of saying this prayer. I'm going to invite you, even though the words that the way that this congregation says it is printed in the bulletin, go with what you know. Go with what's comfortable for you. Just a little heads up, though, that there are going to be, some of your neighbors are going to be trespassing, and some are going to be sinning, and some are going to be deading. And it takes longer to do some of those than the others. So just be aware of your neighbors around you and give them time to get all of those syllables out. Let us pray. All thanks to you, O God, for you have blessed us all with the gift of life. You have blessed Mary with that gift, and you now receive her soul with gracious and open arms. What an amazing thing you have done, this giving of life, this blessing that comes through wise and caring people, this promise of eternal new life revealed to us in Christ. Even in times of loss and sadness, when we stop and realize your presence in the midst of it all, it causes us to pause in awe. We praise you with humble hearts. We thank you that in the depth of our grief and in the shadows of our sorrow, we are not left to ourselves. We have the light of your promises to sustain and comfort us. Through our tears, give us vision to see in faith the consolation you intend for us. In your mercy, grant us the unfailing guidance of your saving word, both in life and in death. With faith in your great mercy and wisdom, we entrust Mary to your eternal care. We praise you for your steadfast love for her all the days of her earthly life. We thank you for all that she was to those who love her. We rejoice that we had the gift of walking the earth with Mary and could be touched by her wisdom and her caring spirit. We thank you that for Mary all sickness and sorrow are ended and death itself is past, and that she has entered the home where all your people gather in peace. O God, whose days are without end and whose mercies cannot be counted, awaken us to the shortness and uncertainty of human life. By your Holy Spirit, lead us in faithfulness all our days. And when we have served you in our generation, may we be gathered with those who have gone before, having the testimony of a good conscience, in the comfort of a saving hope, in favor with you, our God, and at perfect peace with the world. Through Jesus Christ, our Redeemer, who taught us to pray together, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. The next hymn is in the bulb. There is a flower. Again, it's printed on the insert in your bulletin, and we will remain seated to sing.
Tree, in the
after the commendation and the benediction, the choir is going to be singing a choral benediction. There's a little bit of the history about this choral benediction that's in your bulletin. The piece that's not there is that many of us here in the church did not know that this piece existed until we were looking for another piece that we knew that Austin Lovelace had written as by request by Mary. He did it as a favor by Mary as they were getting ready to celebrate the life of, and I think it was Jim Holloway, who was this congregation's organist who had passed away. But in searching, no? He was a baritone singer, not the organist. Okay. See, this is why I need to look over to people who are wiser and have been around longer than I have. So when we were looking for that piece, we ran across this piece, and the acknowledgement on the top of it indicates that Austin Lovelace wrote this in recognition of Mary's 40 years of being choir director for First Congregational United Church of Christ. So that will be a special piece. And again, we did not know that it existed until we went looking. Let us be in the spirit of prayer. Holy God, by your mighty power you gave us life, and in your love you have given us new life in Jesus Christ. Into your hands, O merciful Savior, we commend your servant Mary. Acknowledge, we humbly pray, a sheep of your own fold, a lamb of your own flock, and a daughter of your own redeeming. Receive her into the arms of your mercy, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into the company of the saints in light. Amen. And now may the God of peace, who brought again the dead of our Savior Jesus, the great shepherd of the sheep, giver of the eternal covenant, equip you with everything good that you may do God's will, working in you that which is pleasing in God's sight, through Jesus Christ, to whom glory forever and ever. And may God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May God look upon you with kindness and give you peace. Let us go forth in the name of Christ.
He shows